Hey guys, welcome to the first live, and today I'm just going to show you a really simple Thai pork dish. It's a bit different because the spec for it is without chili, but everything else is going to be exactly the same. So just here I've got a kilo of minced pork. I've got some picked Thai basil, coriander, mint, limes, ginger and garlic that's already minced, some chicken stock and some soy sauce. So we're just going to kick it off by frying off our mince, and we want to develop some colour on the mince so we get a decent amount of flavour. So what we're looking to do, this is just a canola oil, so a flavourless oil. And the first thing we're going to do is fry off the meat and get some colour on there, and that is going to develop the Maillard reaction, so then we're going to get a much deeper, better flavour. So we don't want any water. If there's any water, we can just grab a sieve and a bowl, and if you get a lot of water or fat come out of there, you want to drain that off. One, so it's not in the food, so it's a lot cleaner, and two, so you're not preventing or slowing down getting that colour, because if there's water present, you're not going to be able to get that colour, and then you're just going to lose on flavour. So in a hot pan, we can just do it in batches. This is 1 kilo, so probably going to do this in three pans. So I just keep 2 so you can keep up, and then we can put that in. And as soon as it goes into the pan, you can start breaking it down. So this is actually a rare breed pork. So it's got some nice fat that's going to create a good bit of flavour, and there shouldn't be too much water in it. So obviously you want to get your meat from the butcher wherever you can, rather than the supermarket. In the supermarket, you're going to have a really high water content, and that is not what you want. So you can just get this frying off. And while that's frying off, I'm just going to cut my onion up. So you can use shallots if you want, but onion works just as well. So straight down and then straight across, so you've got a nice chop. And then you can just run around the root, so it's nice and fine and also pretty consistent. So the root is at the back there. Just run the knife down. You might have seen sometimes where they come in from the side, but really the onion actually has its own layers, so it's really pointless. And if it is really big, you can just run your knife through it afterwards. So for this dish, it doesn't matter too much at all, because by the time it's cooked, you will not be able to see the onion. So just run the knife around the root. And if it is too big, you feel it's too chunky, then you can just run the knife through to make it that bit finer. So this can go straight into a bowl or into a pan. There's my oil gone. Here it is. Touch of oil. Make sure you see that colour there. That's what we're looking for, because that colour is going to create a great bit of flavour, and then we can just break it down. Because what we're going to do then is we're going to get it nice and crispy, but then we're going to add stock, and we're going to cook it down really slowly in the stock. So what might seem really hard bits of meat, afterwards they're going to pretty much braise, and that's going to break them down and make it really soft, but then you've got all that flavour cooking into it from this process right now. So it's just going to create that much more flavour, and you would much rather eat something that's that colour than this pale white. So It does take a little bit more work and a little bit more time, but absolutely worth it in the end. So, and you can see this meat, there's hardly any water coming out, and we're cooking it at a high heat, so when there is water present, it's pretty much evaporating before it comes out. So you want to get a real decent amount of heat into the pan before you start. So you can just break it all down, and then that one can go straight in to there, because we've got enough colour on there, so it's just speeding up the process to have it in 2 pans. And then you can go in with this. Let's go in with all of that. So that can go in the bin, and then just any big bits, you can just break them down. So really, really easy. Don't worry about it too much if there's big lumps, because it's going to be so soft afterwards that, you know, it's actually going to add some texture to it. So if you wanted to, you could add some vegetables into this, like capsicums, or really small fried off bits of aubergine, whatever you want really, you can add into it. This one is just as is, and then afterwards you can put it into baby cos or serve it with rice or whatever you want really, cauliflower rice. And it just makes, if you're going to have it with the lettuce leaf, it just makes it a really great dish to have for lunch. So you can get that frying off and add that colour. I've got quite, not so much, but I want everything to be as clean as possible, so I'm just going to drain that fat out. So it's basically just in a sieve. Can you see that? Yeah. In a sieve, and we'll leave that drain out. And then once that pan is off, we can bring our onion on, and then we're going to go in with, I normally just throw it straight in, but I will measure it. So always going with my ginger first, just so I don't contaminate the other jar. So 2 tablespoons of ginger, and then 1 tablespoon of garlic. So we can just leave that on a low heat to cook down. Get some nice colour on this second batch. Those trimmings can just go on the, I've got something cooking on the back, so we can just add those trimmings to something else to create that little bit more flavour. And for the time being, that is it. So right now, if you've got another side, or we can even do this, I always put this one with a cucumber salad. So this is English cucumber, continental cucumber, but the Lebanese ones are just as good, just might need a couple of them. So I'm just going to give this a wash quickly. There's actually no need to wash it, because I'm now just going to peel it. So let's not peel it too well. So we've got some different colour on there. Normally this cucumber salad is with chilli, but we're not putting the chilli in today. So if you're going to put the chilli in, what you want to do is add it to the onions, and you want to fry them off so you get that smoke happen. And when the chilies hit that point, it's going to make you cough, but it adds a completely different flavour profile to the dish, and it just, you know, they don't compare. If you were to try one without that fried off chili and one with, they don't compare. So, you know, even though it makes you cough, make sure you get those chilies to that point, because it's really worthwhile. So this spatula can go in with the onions because it's all the same dish and it's going to cook in the end. So don't worry about cross-contamination, because at the end of the day it's all going to the same place. So we can go in there, and we're just going to keep those on the move. And that's really got a great bit of colour on, and this has got more colour on. So we want about 50% of it to be really nicely covered. So just scrape all of that out, leave that fat drain away. We don't need that pan anymore, so it can go away. This one can go away. Grab my phone so I can get a shot of in here. So these are softening down nicely, and because they're pretty soft now, I'm just going to ramp up the heat. This is a full heat on this stove, so it's not actually that much more powerful than your one at home. So, or if you're on induction, then you probably actually get a lot more heat a lot more quickly into there. And then the pork can go straight in. That can go away. And just to show you, this is how much fat came out. So obviously there's the oil that I put in at the beginning as well, but a good amount of fat. So if you are not bothered about the fat, then obviously it can stay in. But for my meal prep service, we're always draining out the fat. Normally if you're going to use beef or lamb, you're going to get a much higher volume than you would from that pork, where it can actually be quite a crazy amount of pork coming out, fat coming out. So that's gone in. And then some soy sauce. Gonna add the soy sauce. So maybe a shot of soy sauce has just gone in. And the soy sauce is your salt content, right? So when you're cooking dishes like this, you're not going to use salt, you're going to use soy sauce. Or if you've got misos going in, that will be your salt element. So just be really wary of what you're putting in. Even the stock, this is a reduced salt version, but always just be really wary of what you're putting in, because you can always add salt afterwards, but you can't take it away. So just be mindful of that. And then we can knock this down onto a low heat, and we're actually going to cook that until it's pretty much dry. So you just grab a pot for my utensils, so you can just fill that up with water. If you grab one of these before you start, you've always got spoons, spatulas, fish slices that you can put in there, and it's just going to be it's going to save you a lot of time, because you'll just be able to grab it instead of looking for it. You're going to know where it is, and also you're not going to have to wash it so often. You can just sit in there and then you're good to go when you need it. So I've got my cucumber to do in the meantime. That is just going to cook down. We're going to finish that once it's cooled for meal prep. Any green herbs or anything that you're going to put in to your meal prep, you want to put it in when it's pretty much cold. If you put it in when it's hot, you're going to get that cook, and that's when you're going to see it all black in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this down. I'm going to pour it onto one of these trays. It can go straight into the fridge, and then when it's cooled, I've got my Thai basil, I've got a bunch of coriander, and I've got some mint that I'm going to throw through there, and that's just going to give it a load of freshness and punch flavour for when we come to bite into it. So for this, you can just slice it up. If you've got one of these, then be super careful with it. I really recommend this type of style. You see some that have a V and they're just like lethal. They're really, really easy to cut yourself, and it really stings. So there is a guard to go with it somewhere, but in the end you actually get quite a lot of waste. So I'm just gonna run my cucumber through this. And normally I would add chili to this as well, but but no seeds. Want it to be cool. It's a cooling element. You're going to put a couple of chilies in there with the seeds, so that's going to have a little bit of kick to it. And then with this one, you put in, you know, the long chilies and seedless, and that way it's not really adding that much spice to it. So get it as close down to the end as you can without making contact with the blade, and then we can just throw that into a bowl. Just put this on for a little bit more. Okay, just turn this down while we're finishing this up. So that's cooking away nicely. And then my mint, I've got some going in the get the protein right, in the pork, and then I've got this. So we just need to get rid of the big stalks. The little ones can stay. So we can just exactly the same with the other herbs. Nothing wrong with the stems, it's just the root that you want to avoid, unless you're going to wash it really well. That's why I always soak my coriander in here. I have a massive fear of coriander. My first job, like over 20 years ago now, it wasn't washed properly, ended up breaking a tooth. So always be super careful of that. But if you're going to put it well washed, and you can use that into your marinade, it's got a great flavour, and it's actually a different flavour to the leaf, so it's definitely worth utilising, so we're not wasting anything. So yeah, this knife will do. Very quick run through. So I'd never over chop. You know, I've just gone through it the once, and that's enough. So don't go crazy and end up chopping, because what will happen is, you know, when you see your board and it's really, really green, that means all your flavour is basically gone into the board and it's not going into the dish. So literally just, you know, if it's a bit bigger than that, don't worry about it too much, because what will happen is you're going to get juice come out of the cucumber, and that's going to soften those leaves anyway, so it's not going to have that dry texture that it does now. So sesame oil, about a tablespoon, and I always go in with a little bit of ginger. So grab your spoon, and then let's make it, that will be about a teaspoon, and we're just missing the chili in this, but that's just a really simple cucumber salad to go with the pork. So that's still cooking down nicely. So once you've got that, that can actually go straight into a container. Can get rid of that bowl. So you want to keep it nice and clean as you go, so you've not got any mess. So you can see that my worktop is quite clear, so it's easy to find stuff. You're not getting completely sidetracked and lost by not being able to find stuff. So just make sure that this isn't sticking to the sides, and just make sure it's moved every once in a while, just so it gets a nice even cook. And then that is pretty much it. We're waiting for that to cook down. So the limes are actually to go when the dish is being eaten. So you load it into your lettuce leaf or whatever, and then you just squeeze over your lime as you need it. So those just go in the bag, and we don't add that. If you were to add it now, it will just lose its flavour, and it will be kind of pointless to even put it in the first place. You get that little bit of acidity, but it won't taste as fresh and as nice as if you just put it on top when you're almost there. So. Okay, sorry about that. The card was full, so I pretty much just took, that would be equivalent of like a bunch that you would find in Coles. Just picked that and chopped it. This is exactly the same, one bunch of Thai basil. So very lightly, just no more than 3 chops. You don't really want any major breakdown of that one. You just want it to stay really, it's going to wilt afterwards. As soon as you heat up your pork, it will wilt. I turned that off again. So coriander can go in there, mint can go in there, sorry. And then about half of this coriander, we can just run the knife through. And you can see that's quite a decent amount of herb in there. So for 1 kilo of beef, so it's got quite a lot of herbs, but it's going to really give a beautiful flavour. So that really is it. That is the dish until this is cooked down, and then until this is cooked down and dry, we're just a waiting game. So if you are doing your meal prep now, you can just bang on your rice and whatever other dishes that you've got on the go. So normally I'm always serving this one with, you know, like a chili and garlic fried bok choy or pat choy, Chinese cabbage. Even broccolini is pretty awesome. So just like toast off that garlic beforehand and then just fry it off in the pan. So that's cooking down nicely. So we can get rid of all of this, and I will show you again once I've taken it off the heat. So I'll catch you in a sec. So this has got a touch of liquid left in it, but you can see that it's pretty much dry, but that liquid is just going to help it when you come to heat it up. You want that liquid in there just so it's not completely dry if you're heating it up in the pan. If you're going to microwave it, then you don't need as much liquid. So let's strain that into a tray. Off. Just make sure we get all these onions off the bottom, because loads of flavour in those. And then that is it. It doesn't look like much right now, but once you add all the herbs to it, if you were to have your chilies in there, you're going to add your aubergine or capsicums, whatever. tasty as. So stick that in the fridge if it's for meal prep. Otherwise, if you're ready to go on the table, then literally just throw in your herbs now, give it a mix, and you're good to go and serve dinner. So once it's cooled, I'm gonna add the herbs, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've just pulled the pork out of the fridge, which is pretty much cool now. So the herbs that I've got from before, the mint, coriander, and Thai basil, just gonna throw that one in, and then we just give it a mix, and then that's good to go straight in the containers for your meal prep. So when it comes to reheating, really quickly in the pan, so you're not wilting down those herbs too much. There's a lot of herbs in there, and if you're doing it in the microwave, then it just needs a really short blast just to take the chill off. If you're having it in lettuce leaves, or if you're having it with rice, then you can just heat it up all the way through. So bang that straight into a container. That's going to be like 5 or 6 portions, depending on what you bulk it out with your sides. And then that is one job done. So Thai pork with the cucumber salad, loads of fresh herbs, loads of flavour, really simple, and a great one to get started on your meal prep. So if you try it, make sure you comment below, and I'll see you in the next live.